Hi everyone, it's me, Arielle, and it's Wednesday Warriors. And this week I'm going to be talking about goals. Goals are things that I really like. Anyone who's in my eating disorder support group can tell you that I'm all about the goals. I love to end every group meeting with goals for the week or goals till next time, till next group. And I think that goals are really important. People have to know what small manageable goals are. They have to know what goals mean. They have to realize how goals can be achieved. And they have to understand that goals are things that we need to work for and that we hope to be able to do. They aren't things that are a given. If they're not a challenge, they're not really goals. If it's something you're going to do anyway, it's not really considered a goal. So this week, I'm going to be talking about specific goals, what you want to achieve. And I would suggest writing a list of very specific things that you want to achieve in relation to your eating disorder, but maybe just in relation to life in general. They can be things like reconcile with my father, or work up to eating a lunch and dinner every single day, or find a therapist and stick with one. Things that are specific to certain events or people or things that you want to achieve. So, for example, the difference between general and specific as far as the eating goal. If your specific goal is to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, then your general goal would be to eat more than I'm eating now. You know, one is very specific, one is more general. The more specific the goal, the more accountable you will have to be, and the more potential there is for you to do it and accomplish it and have that sense of self-success when you do. And then measurable goals. And by measurable, I mean, how will you know when you've achieved that goal? What will be different? What will you have been doing less or more of? So you'll obviously know that you have achieved the goal of eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day if you make the plan to do so, and you of course notice that you are in fact eating 3 meals every day without fail. What will be different is that you will be eating more. Probably you will be gaining weight. Again, I'm just using a specific random example. And to use a different example that's a little bit less tangible, the example of reconcile with my father, how that could be a measurable goal. How will you know that you've achieved it? What will be different? For example, you might know that you have achieved it when you are able to think of your father with less pain and hurt than you did before, or when you're able to make that phone call to your father or write that letter to your father. When you have actually done that, you have set a plan in motion, you've taken a step. The reconciliation may have happened if you have had a response from your father to the letter or to the call or however you have reached out. So those are some ways to measure that goal. An achievable goal is like a goal that might be a step to a larger goal. Basically, you're teaching yourself to celebrate what you do achieve, and I would say that the goals that I like the women in my group to set for themselves at the end of each group session are achievable goals because they are a step, a small goal until next time, until the next group. For example, someone wouldn't make a goal to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day as a goal for the end of a group meeting until next time, because that's a goal that they want to achieve overall in the big picture. An achievable goal or a baby step would be that they want to focus on eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner on a day when they have a really big test or a really big presentation or a speech to make for school or work, and they know that they need all of the nutrition and all of the fuel and all of the energy and putting their best foot forward. That would be more of a baby step goal, that they want to do it for that specific time, for that event. If we're going to use the example of the less tangible goal again, like reconciliation with a father, the achievable goal would be perhaps to write down some things of what you want to say to your dad when you begin to write that letter or you begin to call him on the phone to do the reconciliation. And then realistic and resourced goals sort of explain, do you have the resources? Where can you get the resources? How can you access these resources? This is very self-explanatory. If you're setting overall big picture goals for yourself, you're going to need to look at all the baby step goals that will lead you up to those big ones and see if they're realistic, see if you do actually have the means to get to those goals. And if you don't have the means, you then first have to work on getting the means and achieving that before you can achieve the bigger goal. This can be hard for people to grasp, but it's really, really important to partialize, break everything down, start small, and work up to the larger goal. Goals can a lot of the time be broken into much smaller pieces, and it's not that the goal is unachievable, it's just that it really is maybe 5 or 6 smaller goals that make up that larger goal. And I think writing it down on paper is a really good way to see what you're up against, see what you do want to achieve, and you can kind of cross things off as you do them, and that always gives me a sense of accomplishment. Time-limited goals. What's a reasonable time to do these goals? In general, I don't like time limits because I feel like they're deadlines, and what I see happening with people is when they give themselves a time limit and they don't achieve the goal they set for themselves by the end of that time limit, they feel that they have failed, and they have a sense of failure instead of a sense of accomplishment. Or even instead of remaining neutral and understanding that more time may now be in order, they feel that sense of failure immediately, and they want to give up, or they want to resort to poor ways of coping, or they want to just throw out that goal entirely because they won't ever achieve it because they didn't achieve it in the time they set for themselves. So again, in general, I really don't like time limits. I really don't like deadlines. Because I think when we talk about time limits, people really set themselves up in a negative way. If you know how to use time limits to your advantage and you understand that a time limit is just a range, it's just a bracket, it's just a way for you to conceptualize the goal and how long it might take you as an approximate average, and you won't take it upon yourself to feel like a failure if you don't do it in that exact amount of time, then I think it can be healthy to set time limits. For example, if you are going to be talking about a goal like reconciling with your father, depending upon how difficult the relationship is or how large the issues are surrounding the fact that you do not have a good relationship currently, then you have to assess how long it might take you to work up the courage to understand what it is you want out of the reconciliation and determine what way you want to initiate the reconciliation. And when you can assess that, you might give yourself a time frame of 3 months, just for example. And if at the end of those 3 months you have not reconciled with your father, then you shouldn't feel like a failure. You should ask yourself, why haven't I reconciled yet? Is something holding me back? Do I really want to reconcile with my father? Is this necessary to my recovery? Is this healthy for my life? Or am I holding back because of something that I don't want to look at? It's a lot of the time about self-assessment. Another way to look at some things with time limits is for the same example of reconciliation with a father. If you have given yourself a sort of time limit of 3 months, and at the end of those 3 months you haven't reconciled yet with your father, but you have made some steps towards that goal, like listing all of the things you want to tell him or talk about or get off your chest, some things that you need to ask, or you've actually written a letter or an email, but you haven't actually sent it. You are bringing it to your therapist, for example, and you're talking about it in therapy, or maybe if you're not in therapy, you're journaling about it, then you're taking strides to achieve that goal. And simply because it hasn't happened within your 3-month time limit that you set for yourself, then I don't think that there's really anything wrong with that, but you have to understand that because you haven't achieved everything within the 3 months, there's nothing wrong, and you haven't failed, and your goal may still be a very good one and one that's right for you. You also want to make sure that the time limit is appropriate to the goal. So reconciliation with your father, you don't want to give yourself a 1-week time limit. It may not be appropriate toward that goal. Same thing for that large goal of eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. If that's not something that you're currently doing, you don't want to give yourself a 1-week time limit or even a 1-month time limit to achieve that on a daily, regular basis, because that's a goal that takes a lot of work if that's not your current status with food. It's very tricky to determine time limits for things like goals, which is another reason why I don't think there needs to be a time limit. If you're giving yourself a very loose, broad time limit, and we're talking like, by the end of a year, I would like to have accomplished this in therapy, or I would like to be this much farther with this particular goal, that might be more healthy and okay. But if you're giving yourself a deadline that by December of 2012, you need to be at this point in recovery and you don't get there, you really need to have the mindset that that's okay. There is a lot that I could say about goals, and I think that goals are really wonderful things. I have done some videos in the past in regards to goals, and I invite you to watch those if this is something that you'd like to learn more about. It's really about being self-aware. It's really about self-assessment. It's about being introspective. You really have to look at yourself to make achievable goals, goals that are healthy, goals that are wise. And I think people who make goals are very successful people in the sense that they will be happier and feel empowered and good about themselves because you are the one making the goal for you. No one else is making that goal for you, and that's what's really important. You have to be the one doing this and holding yourself accountable. It can't be anyone else, or it's not going to have the same effect. I hope you're all having a wonderful week out there, and I will see you next time.